Here we go.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hello and welcome back to Be Beautiful, Adaptive Warrior. I am your host, Angie Huser, and I am here with an amazing person that I cannot wait for you all to meet. And someone who I have watched on social media, a crazy athletic woman and a jack of all trades, it seems like, Dani Aravich. I hope I said that right.
Yes, you did.
All right. Welcome to the show, Dani.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
Yeah, as I've been telling people as we're going through this month of April, Limb Loss, Limb Difference Awareness Month, it's kind of funny because I spoke to someone this past week who was a 1992 Paralympian, a three-track skier, alpine, and gold medalist, 2 bronzes. And it's just crazy because she's like, all these new terms, limb difference, limb loss. She goes, I don't like stump, that's for sure. But there's so many different terms. She goes, can I say this? Can I say this? And I said, whatever you want. You're talking about yourself. So yeah. I am just excited to have you here. I mean, truly, this is an honor. And I'm thankful that you spent the time. I know you're busy, you're young, you're active, you're doing your thing. And it's great to have you. I would just love for you to tell everybody who Dani is. And it's short for Danielle.
Yes.
Would you go by Dani? Yes.
But I go by Dani.
Okay. Well, a little bit about your past, like as a child, what your limb difference is and kind of how that maybe impacted you as a child in school and things like that. Some of the things that maybe we don't think about. Especially those of us that later in life became an amputee or whatever. So all you.
So I was born missing my left hand and forearm, and my parents didn't know that I was going to be missing my hand. So when I came out, they were, to their surprise, I didn't have a hand.
Wow.
And I think they were definitely worried about any hardships that I could face, just because they didn't know anyone else who was missing a limb really at that point. But I was lucky to grow up in a pretty small community in Boise, Idaho. And I went to the same school from the time I was in 1st grade through 8th, and then went to the same high school as most of my elementary and middle school classmates. Okay. So I was really lucky that I grew up in this community that I think definitely it took, when we were little kids, some time for them to get used to me having one hand, but then we continued our childhood together. So I was really lucky to not encounter any bullying, any issues with that with my classmates. I would say the hardest part about having the limb difference growing up was having mostly strangers staring at me when I'd go in public, like just to a grocery store or to the mall or something, and having other kids stare at me, and I could hear them whisper to their parents like, "Mommy, what happened to your hand?" And the kind of hush hush, don't ask, that's rude. I think that is something that was a little difficult and affected my self-confidence for sure. And being a teenage girl, you're already self-conscious about so much, so then to throw on having a very visible difference from your peers was really hard. And I wanted to look like everyone else, but that ended up resulting in me wearing, a sweatshirt and a prosthetic arm on 100-degree days in the summer, just so someone wouldn't stare at me in public. And just kind of making myself almost uncomfortable to try to make others more comfortable with the difference. So I'm very lucky though now. We've moved. I think especially through sport, I've been able to build that self-confidence and not be afraid to have people stare at me anymore. So I'm very happy to have built that confidence and now trying to help other people feel confident so they don't have to go through those terrible, awkward stages of being an amputee.
Well, for sure. And so you did end up having a prosthetic arm. Did they try that successfully with you? I mean, I haven't ever seen you with it on in any of your social media. So do you ever use it?
Not anymore. I haven't since I was 14 about. I do have an attachment for a bicycle right now, but it stays on my bicycle, and I just pop my arm into it, and I'm probably going to have to get a new one for a new bike built this summer. But was fitted for my first prosthetic at Shriners Hospitals for Children when I was 6 months old. So I was at the
Oh,
time, I believe, the youngest baby to have a myoelectric arm in the 90s. So
wow.
one of the first like partially electric arm that was tied a little more neurologically
Right.
to be able to sense and move on its own without
That's great.
me controlling it. And I wore a prosthetic then, yes, until I was about 14 years old. But I just didn't like them for myself.
Yeah.
I see the benefit. Like one of my teammates right now who has a similar arm impairment to myself wears hers religiously every day, and she's 23 years old now. And she definitely has probably a better balance in her body because she
Mhm.
has a better weight
Right.
distribution. But I couldn't handle wearing it every single day. I just felt
It's
more free without it. So
yeah.
I chose to ditch it when I was in early high school.
Well, yeah, I can imagine. Well, and of course,
Mhm.
this comes to questions that are just, and I'm hoping that my audience has these same questions because I'm used to the people not understanding that like I take showers without my leg on because it's electric.
Yeah.
I can't take a shower with it on. And there were questions I had too before I became an amputee was
Yeah.
like, do I sleep with it? No, you don't sleep with it. That was so, I mean, I try to take naps with it on and it's so uncomfortable. But
Oh.
with you, like, how do you handle just day-to-day things like putting your hair up in a ponytail and things like that? I mean, have you mastered that or do you have
Definitely
to have
have not
help?
mastered it, but growing up, I did learn to tie my shoes pretty early on. I still honestly like for race days, I have a coach or a teammate tie my shoes because I can't get it to the
Tight.
tightness that I want it
Yeah.
when I'm
You don't want it
competing.
coming undone while you're running.
Yeah,
You know.
but I can definitely I've grew up learning to tie my shoes, and we figured out ways to do that. I did have my mom always do my hair growing up, so when I first went to college, and I went to college pretty far away from home and
Yeah.
didn't know anyone at the school I was at, I kinda had to start, like, trying to figure out how I could put it in a pony and how I could hold a curling iron, and if I was straightening my hair, how do I reach the pieces in the back and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it definitely just took, like, a lot of experimentation, but for the most part, I'm trying to think of something I can't really do, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not sure.
well, yeah. And I mean, obviously, if you grow up and that's all you know,
Mhm. Exactly.
that's just what you know. Um,
Mhm.
I do have to say I'm astounded and inspired because I think, yes, I may be lost my leg mid femur
Uh-huh.
down, but I'd rather have my leg missing than my hands. So I'm impressed. I'm totally impressed that you can do the things that you do and that it for you, it's just normal, and I get
Yeah.
that. Whereas with me, I guess I was, 47 when I lost my leg.
Mm.
And that was
Mhm.
tough emotionally
Mhm.
because it's like losing a friend, like it was always
Mhm.
there and now it's
Totally.
not. But I don't mind. And I feel very blessed that I've been able to pass that, and just move
Mhm.
forward and not get stuck in the past. But
For
that's
sure.
crazy. And now you're like, you have a very colorful life already. I mean, you've done, I'm looking at, I'm always into sports and I see that you would love to be a
Uh-huh.
GM for the NFL. I saw that in an interview and I'm curious because football is our life here. If I
Oh,
have
yeah.
two teenage boys, both who played
Ah,
football. I met my husband in high school. I played softball. He was playing football. So all we
okay.
do is football season is on. If there's a game, it's on. You know what I mean? In our house.
Uh-huh.
And so I started looking in, and you went to college at Butler,
Mhm.
right? And did you go on a scholarship to run?
Mhm. But I only ran my freshman year because I was really focused on my after collegiate career, which I wanted to be in the professional sports industry. So I chose to leave the team and focus on doing some other things and internships while I was there so that I could be more well equipped to get my dream job.
And what was it that you did? You were with the Colts, the Pacers, and then you went to Utah Jazz. What were you doing? Because it sounds like you were a
I
business major.
Yes, I studied business and I wanted to focus on professional sports. So while I was in college, I interned for the Indianapolis Colts doing marketing and events, and then for the Indiana Pacers doing game operations. So basically anything in game entertainment, a lot of things fans
Cool.
don't think of, but the scoreboard and the little videos they play, to the MC, to the announcer, to the dance team, anything like that was our focus. And then my job after college was working for the Utah Jazz. I started in sales and then moved into community relations.
Wow. That is
Mhm.
so cool. I'm actually jealous. That is so cool. If I could do my
It's
life
not as glamorous
again.
as it seems.
No,
I
but
think
if your love of sports
mhm,
is that intense that you would get in any way, you never know. I found that now in my later years that I've
mhm,
learned to say yes to so many different opportunities because you don't know who you'll meet,
mhm,
what direction
definitely,
it'll take you, and what doors will open for you. So
for
sometimes you
sure.
start, maybe it's not glamorous, but it's a start
Mhm,
someplace exciting that it could lead
mhm,
somewhere bigger and better.
mhm,
But what ended up happening, okay, so one of the things with this podcast is my goal is always, I feel like I'm very blessed that even though I went through so many trials for about 5 years and a lot of surgeries and a lot of bad things that
uh-huh,
happened, the choice that I made to amputate, I would not change. It has
yes.
been that much of a blessing in my life that I can do everything I want to do with my family and
Mhm,
more. And of course, competing. And I
mhm,
find it amazing to me that even at my young age of 50, that I could still have those dreams to compete
uh-huh,
at a different level in a way that I would never ever be able to. And then when I talked to Ronnie Sasaki, it was an interview yesterday on her Olympic, she didn't start training and become a skier till 17, and
yeah,
she competed right after that. Your story is very similar as well, isn't it? So
yes,
tell us a little bit about your journey from the jazz to where it led you.
yes, I grew up playing any sport and that I could possibly get my hands on, and I always played against able-bodied peers,
Mhm.
and while I was in high school and I started running cross country and track and field, I was doing quite well, and so that's how I ultimately got to the Division 1 level to run. But while I was working my job, which again I thought was gonna be my dream and was gonna make me feel fulfilled, and it was gonna be my passion, and I was gonna work until 65 and move up
Yeah.
in the organization, I just wasn't feeling those feelings I thought I would
Yeah.
have at that stage in my career, especially being that early on in my career.
Can I
And
ask really quick, how old
someone
were you
Mhm.
at that time? How old were you when you were working with the jazz?
I was 22 till I was 24.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Mhm. And while I was there, we knew a family friend whose daughter was getting involved in the Paralympics from the same hometown as I. And we started asking her some questions and looking into it loosely. And so I was deciding I might try this, just see what it's really like. I looked at some of the times for the track and field team. And unfortunately, the events that were offered to my classification, which is basically people of a similar disability compete
Right.
against each other in the Paralympics, for
Right.
mine, we were only able to run the 100, 200, or 400. And my events in college and in high school were the 5,000, the 3,000, so much longer events.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a just a trial to see would I even like training for this. I was still working full time, so I was only able to train, after
Yeah.
7 p.m. at night when I was done working. And it somehow molded into becoming my whole life and taking over. And then from there, I was introduced to para cross country skiing and para biathlon and invited to try it out at a clinic in Breckenridge in late 2019, and suddenly I was training, for two sports, and the goal was to try to qualify for Tokyo in 2020 and try to qualify for Beijing in 2022. And then amidst the global pandemic, 2020 was pushed back. So we had went from having 18 months to train in between the two games to having only 6. And
Holy
it
cow.
was a scary feat to try to do both. And they are pretty conflicting sports. People think, oh, running, skiing, like both cardio, both
Mhm.
they'll fit in great, but running the 400 was much different than skiing for 15 kilometers or so. So
Yeah, I can
different sports
imagine.
for sure.
I mean, that's absolutely insane. So you ended up, and I didn't say that at the beginning, but you competed in both the Olympics in Tokyo and Beijing, 6 months apart from each other. And so
Mhm.
what did you actually compete in with the Summer Olympics?
I was in track and field and ran the 400 meters. And
Okay.
then for the winter, I did 2 out of the 3 cross country skiing events and 2 out of the 3 biathlon events.
And how long are those winter events? Because it
It
sounds
goes anywhere.
exhausting.
Yeah. I mean, some of my teammates did all 7 events over the
Oh,
span of 2 weeks. But the shortest distance is about a kilometer or so, and then the furthest will be the men's ski up to 20 kilometers.
and the
Mhm.
biathlon, I was trying to remember all this. The biathlon is with the rifle, correct?
Mhm. Yes, so cross country skiing and target shooting. And depending on the race and the competition, if you have any misses when you shoot your targets, you ski extra
Oh,
laps basically of a certain area. So you want to
wow.
try to shoot as clean as possible so you don't have to ski extra.
How did your shooting go?
Not well.
Had
That's
you had
definitely the
shooting
thing.
before this?
I grew up in Idaho, so we would definitely do some shooting and I'd go hunting with my dad, but
Yeah.
I never had to, shoot after having skied and
I know your
done
heart
something
rate.
very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, have a high heart rate after doing a lot of cardio. So it's definitely something that in the next 4 years before the next games that my coaches and I are gonna focus on a lot.
And so between those two types of events, summer and
Mhm,
winter, what is your
mhm.
draw? What's your favorite? What do you want to continue for as long as you possibly can competing in?
I want to ski, cross country ski definitely as long as my body will allow. So I hope for 3 more games until I'm about 40. But I just decided recently that I'm not going to run track and field probably any longer, just due to the fact that I didn't really love the 400. I don't know if anyone really loves the 400, but it
Uh,
didn't really feel my specialty, and the
yeah.
training just wasn't stuff I was used to. So I did it for a few years. I accomplished my goal of qualifying, but I am going to take a stab this summer at para triathlon and see how
Oh,
that would go. I have a lot of work to do in swimming, but I've done
wow.
quite a bit of biking as cross training for skiing. And obviously, it's running a 5K, and I definitely have some experience doing that. So I'm excited to be
Yeah.
able to try that. And I think it will translate better for my fitness for cross country skiing.
Yeah. I think it seems like you've conditioned yourself
Yeah,
for
I'm an
longer
endurance
running.
freak.
Yeah. So with swimming, what is what would be the biggest struggle?
I think that I will definitely struggle with dealing with open water for sure, and not being, in the safety of a pool, but being thrown out into a lake or an ocean
Yeah.
to swim and not being able to see underneath you. So I'm
That's so
definitely
funny.
nervous for that.
You know what? That is, I don't know why. I grew up in Illinois and we went Wisconsin. We'd always be in the lakes as
Oh, yeah.
kids. And as an adult, I'm
Uh-huh.
like, yeah, I have no desire to be where I can't see what's
To hop
swimming
back in.
below me. I don't know what it
Yeah,
is.
for sure.
However, I have tried surfing. And when you're missing a leg, sharks don't seem
Mhm.
so bad. You're like, I already one's gone. What's gonna happen? Really? What's the chance that
Yeah, you're
someone's
like,
gonna
"What
get?
are the odds that that could ever?"
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, that's really cool. Now, can I ask, how did you end up faring in both summer and winter Olympics? I mean, we know that it was brand new for you. I mean,
Mhm.
really, some people, like, you think of gymnasts and they've been starting since they were like 4 and the parents are pushing. But you
Uh-huh.
you did start, I say later in
Later
life,
in
but
life.
not compared
Yeah.
to me, but later in life, right? So
Uh-huh.
how did you fare with summer and winter? What was your
In
outcome?
In the summer games, I believe I placed 5th in my heat, so I did not advance to the finals in the
Okay.
400, but the people who did and the times they ran were ridiculously fast, like, so
Yeah.
much faster than I was running at that point. And then for the Winter Paralympics, I again was only this is my second full season of skiing,
Mm,
so I was really
right.
new to the sport, and the sport definitely requires a lot of technique and experience, so I
Yeah.
knew the odds of medaling were very slim to none.
Yeah.
But I believe I had 2 top 10 finishes out of my 4 races,
Good.
and what was exciting though is I hit criteria to make the national team, so now I will be on the cross country and biathlon national team moving forward, which is
That's awesome.
exciting because it allows, more resources, more opportunities to
Yeah.
compete over the next few years.
Right, right. Well, and I know
Mhm.
that you had said when it came to, was it, maybe it was both, actually, both Olympics. Were they both pretty shut down in the village where you didn't get to experience true Olympic village time with people?
Yes, both times being August of 2021 and most recently March of this year were very weird due to COVID. Like there were so many restrictions and regulations, and we weren't allowed to leave the village at all. So I can't really say I visited Tokyo or Beijing because I didn't really see anything outside the venue and the village.
Yeah.
But they definitely still allowed us to intermingle with people from other countries. We still ate in the same dining halls,
Oh,
just
that's
it
good.
was, yeah, very, masked up. They put little dividers in between every seat everywhere to try to separate people. So hopefully by the time we
Okay.
get to Paris 2024, we will see some normalcy with the games.
That's great. I know in our family we love going to Paris, and we're kind of hoping, knock on wood, that
Mm,
maybe we can get there and actually watch some of
mhm.
these live, because that would be so cool.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, maybe a better trip than the last one I had where I got the blood clot would be
No,
much better for
no.
me. A better memory, I think. So okay, so now I know with most people that I've talked to, we all deal with
Mhm,
certain kinds of struggles because of the way our prosthetics fit. But
mhm,
for you, luckily, you don't have that kind of struggle where
mhm,
you have physical pain happening on your. Do
mhm,
you have what kind of struggles do you still face? Or when you talked about balance, like it's kind of funny because I
mhm,
think of my balance, like huge,
mhm,
right? And I'm really off balance if I do like sled hockey. Like I'm really off
mm.
balance because I only have one leg on the sled. But what with running? I mean, I couldn't even fathom. Is there an oddness to that, not having part of your arm and your balance in that? I mean, do you feel it? Do you notice it?
Yes, most definitely. I'd say my biggest struggle now, especially trying to compete as an elite athlete, is trying to make my body symmetrical because
Mm.
I definitely can't do, the exercises or hold the weight on the left side that I can in my right hand. And so when you look at my back, my mom always says like my right side looks like a swimmer's shoulder and my left side looks like a 4-year-old. Like
Yeah, I
just the
never thought of
muscular
that.
imbalance is really big. So when I was sprinting, particularly in the 400, I would notice that because of the weight difference and the size of my arms, like my chest would over rotate side to side, which is just a
Wow.
waste of energy. And that excess movement is not going to help because, again, you're trying to go forward. So if you're going side
Yeah.
to side, that's not in the direction you want to be going. So I definitely notice it in sprinting, particularly. I don't think it has as big of a difference on my distance running just because I think honestly, you can get away with the form not being as strong as in sprinting to still be successful in distance running. And
Yeah.
then in cross country skiing, it definitely makes it so my right side is getting a lot more work by only holding the pole in the right. So I notice that when I'm trying to in the gym balance out the symmetry, then when I hop on skis and I'm using one pole, it's kind of doing the reverse of what I was
I
trying to
have
do.
no idea. That was my next question. I have no idea how you
Yeah.
cross country ski with one pushing pole.
Well, some of the athletes in our category don't have any poles. So
How do you
I'm
even
like,
do
I'm
that?
thankful I have one at least.
I'd be going up a hill and I'd probably slide all the way back down. I wouldn't even be able to get up. I can't even fathom that. So take
Yeah.
us through, what do you do to train with only, I mean, I would probably be doing circles. I mean, I don't even know if I could keep straight. I mean, cross country skiing, I don't think I've really ever tried it. And now with
Uh-huh.
one leg missing, it would be definitely a challenge. But
Yeah.
how do you train for using the one pole?
We do a lot of work without any poles to try to really focus on what's happening on the lower half of our body because we can't rely on our arms doing as much of the work as an able-bodied skier, we make sure everything on the lower half and our legs are taking most of the blow. So we try to do a lot of work without a pull in order to make sure lower half is doing what it needs to do. And then when we throw in the pull, we basically try to imitate the same pulling techniques and everything that an able-bodied skier would do, and try to do it the exact same way, just obviously missing the one pull. So we try to
Wow.
pull plant at the same time. We do the same techniques, but just without the other pull.
That would be, I would think that would be tough. When I realized I saw some pictures of you actually doing that, I was like,
Mhm.
wait, she only has one pull. That would be hard. And do you guys, I mean, and I really haven't watched a ton of cross country skiing like competitions. I usually really get excited when I see them get their rifles out. That's the part I love to
Oh,
watch.
yeah.
But do they skate? Do you skate when you're cross country skiing, right? A lot of it is that leg movement of almost skating with your skis.
Yes, so the standing skiers, we compete in two different techniques, classic skiing and skate skiing. And so this past Paralympics in Beijing, 2 out of the 3 cross country races were skate, and then all of biathlon races are always skate. So there was quite a
Okay.
few skate races this past year. But for the next games now, we're probably going to have a little bit more classic racing, and classic is definitely the technique that I don't prefer as much.
Yeah. Oh my God. I can't,
Mhm.
yeah, that would be tough. That would be really tough.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, and forgive me if this is wrong, but how are your knees? Do you have,
Oh, terrible.
yeah. And
Well,
does
my
that
one
worry you like at your age? Cause I know what you want to do. I know your dreams are
Mhm.
to go as many Olympics as
Yeah.
you can. So what do you need to do to protect that and deal with that?
Yes, so I had my first knee injury in 2014. My knee first did a full dislocation,
Oh,
and ever since then, it the ligaments on the inner side of my knee are so stretched and some pieces torn that it could dislocate at a moment's notice, which is
wow.
super great to deal with. But I go to physical therapy and a chiropractor to work on it regularly. I have to get it taped almost every time that I'm going to compete. I do have a brace, so for days it does feel weaker or unstable. I
Mm,
can put on the brace, but it's kind of a constant daily struggle, unfortunately.
yeah.
And we had considerations of doing a surgery this summer to repair the ligaments, but it required an 8-month recovery, and I don't really have
Wow.
time for 8 months of recovery. But they
Wow.
did see a small tear in my cartilage, so they recommended maybe doing surgery, but I was like, I'm gonna try to withhold it as long
Oh,
as possible because I just don't
gosh.
have time for the recovery. But I know probably later in life, especially when I'm done competing, I might not be able to stay as active as I'd hope because of the
Yeah.
knee.
Yeah, it's kind of can be frustrating when
Mhm.
you see that as a on the horizon kind of a thing. Trust me, I know at my age, I know I'm probably double your age. But okay, no, so now I'm curious. You have
Uh-huh.
I know you have a bunch of who is Dani outside of this competitive person? What do you love doing? What are things that you spend your downtime doing? You know, I hear you hunt. You hunted at least with your dad.
Uh-huh.
So that's how I was
Yes.
raised too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes, I need to get I'm live in Montana now after growing up in Idaho, and I still need to get my Montana license to try to get my hunting license up there
Yeah.
so that I could go more this fall. But I still work. I really enjoy working, and I work as a freelance social media manager for a few different brands, and then I also work as a casting agent. So I work for a casting company that does influencer marketing and real people casting. So it's been really fun to stay working, and I'm lucky that I get to work from my phone remotely, and it's very
Nice.
flexible to my schedule. And my company is worldwide, so people are sending emails at 1 a.m. my time because they're in Bali and
That's
they're in the peak
crazy.
of their workday. So I don't really know if I have any downtime, to be honest, because every
Yeah.
time I'm not training, I'm trying to at least work. But I really do enjoy spending time in the outdoors. So hiking and camping
Yeah.
and downhill skiing for fun when I can in the winter. I want to try to get into mountain biking this summer is a goal of mine. Next winter, I want to try to get into some backcountry skiing. So basically anything to do in
Fun.
the outdoors. And I'm trying to only live now in mountainous places. So I was
Yeah.
born in Idaho. I did spend some time in the Midwest for college, but then I was in Utah for a few years and now I'm in Montana. So I do really enjoy being near the mountains.
All beautiful places too, right?
Uh-huh.
We just recently did a trip up into Idaho and did Yellowstone and
Nice,
stuff. And
nice.
when yeah, just it's gorgeous out there.
Mhm,
Love
mhm.
the whole Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, all those areas are just
Yeah,
beautiful. Especially if you like to be
agreed.
outside. Now, I'm born and raised
Mhm,
Illinois, but being in
mhm.
Arizona now, I don't know what I would do without being able to see mountains.
Yeah,
I
for
love
sure.
the mountains and, hiking daily. I mean, you can just
Mhm,
take a 5-minute drive and
mhm.
hike and just get away from everybody. It's awesome.
Definitely,
So
definitely.
yeah, I agree. I love being outside. And did I see you did some modeling? Are you
Yes,
still?
I have. I haven't in the past few years, mostly because training has kind of taken over. So anytime there was a potential gig, I couldn't really change my training
Yeah.
schedule to get to it. But it is something I'd like to maybe do a little bit more of in the future. And I think selfishly, it's really just good for people to be able to see someone who's different in different campaigns and hopefully with the diversity these kids who might be born missing their limb or lose their limb can see people who look like them on TV, on a
Yeah.
billboard and magazine, things like that. So I know that's definitely something I want to help progress
I
with all
totally
of this.
agree. And I think we're on the right path to that. I really
Hmm.
do. I think it's interesting because both you and, like I said, Ronnie this last week, um, were both born with your
Hmm.
difference.
Hmm.
And so you don't know any different, but you also are people that I've been able to just kind of get a glimpse on what it was like probably being a child and growing
Hmm.
up. And I mean, gosh, like you said, high school is already hard enough trying to figure out who you are and how you fit in. Middle school, punishing. I used to teach middle school. I know how middle schoolers are. I remember middle school. You tried to fit in the box, right? So you didn't look
Hmm.
different, act different. You went
Hmm.
with the flow. But
Hmm.
I have to say too that what I have noticed, and the reason I try to reach out to other, especially adult women, is one
Hmm.
thing I notice is even at our later stages in life, there's a lot of people that are afraid of being accepted for what they look like now, whether they
Hmm.
lost a limb because of diabetes, cancer,
Hmm.
accident, or choice like me. I have had people ask me, "Are you afraid to go out in public?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, I earned this scar. This is pardon me, a badass scar. And
Uh-huh.
I'm owning it. Right. But there are so many women that that's not the case, or people that have gone through divorce because of it and they don't
Mm.
feel loved anymore. And those are the people that I'm really, so when we try to get out there and show ourselves, it's to show an acceptance that it's love
Mhm.
yourself for who
Just to
you are.
normalize the disability.
Right. Ask questions. It's okay to stare at me, but ask questions. Don't just stare,
Mhm.
talk to
Mhm.
me. And I love when kids do. Like you said,
Mhm.
kids are like there's no filter. They're just
No
like
filter.
looking and you see the mom going, stop, stop, stop. And I'm like, it's
Yep.
okay. And then just
Yep.
having a conversation. I think
Yes.
that's important. The conversations are important. So when you
Yes.
get out, do you do any speaking? Do you get a chance to talk to
I
kids
haven't
or?
done a ton. I actually did my longest one the other night for a group of high schoolers in my
Wow.
hometown, who were receiving top 100 high schoolers of the Valley award. And so I tried to talk to them a little bit about, they're about to go to college, they're about to have all these new life experiences. And here are some disability 101s. Like,
Right.
even the most basic things, I feel like we have to remind people of, like, don't use a handicapped bathroom stall if others are available.
Okay.
Don't park in handicapped spots with your vehicle. Don't do like if when you're opening businesses, make sure it's ADA accessible
Right,
and take
exactly.
extra steps, not just like the bare minimum
Mm,
that the laws require, but try to really make it accessible. Add,
yeah.
auto-generated captions to social media. And so I tried to talk to them a little bit about like, I feel like now that I have a platform and I've met also a lot more people with various disabilities since I only knew like an amputee growing up. I didn't really know anyone else who was a
Yeah.
wheelchair user or who had a visual impairment. So now that I have experiences with a lot more disability and them being my friends and my peers, I feel like I can also help speak on behalf of them and how we are trying to make it more accessible, but
Mhm.
also, like said before, normalize the disability.
Right.
So, now that that group of high schoolers has seen me with, my arm and seen
Yeah.
me missing hand, now maybe next time they see someone who's also missing their hand, it's like not even batting an eye because it's just familiar and they already know someone with it. And so
Right.
I hope that just the more I can come in contact with some of the able-bodied world, then they're going to just feel like it's not, a weird, different,
Right.
strange thing. It's just normal life.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's normal for us now. I mean, for
Mhm.
me now, for you, it's always been normal. But for me, I mean, it seems I don't consider myself disabled, if that sounds weird. Like I know I
No, no.
totally look it and I don't hide it. I'm not the kind of person that wears
Mhm.
pants all the time. I mean, it's
Yeah.
100 plus degrees here all the time. So, shorts are kind of a must or skirts or
Yeah.
whatever. But so if you could give, I guess let's aim it towards younger because you are on the
Uh-huh.
younger side. But if you could give advice on going after the dreams,
Mhm.
dealing with a difference, whether it's a limb
Mhm.
difference or just, there's a lot of other things out there medically
Oh, yeah.
that really kind of categorize kids
Mhm.
and youth growing up. What advice would you give them to kind of succeed in life? What has helped you? What's in your toolbox for succeeding? What do you suggest to them?
I think that the best piece of advice is definitely to use your difference to your advantage. And I think that, to be honest, like when I was interviewing for jobs and they ask, questions of like, what's something that you had to deal with that was difficult? And I'm like, well, mine's kind of obvious, but to be honest, like this is definitely something you probably won't hear in the rest of your interviews.
Right, exactly.
And I think you can change your difference to be viewed to something positive, hopefully for yourself, but also for the
Mhm.
rest of the world. And so to be able to use it and be proud of it and be able to talk about it and explain experiences you had, I think will make you just a very valuable member of whatever you want to do. And obviously, I know like if I wasn't missing my hand, I couldn't compete in the Paralympics. And so
Right.
it's, I feel very blessed that I have the opportunity that I did. So it's funny looking back when I was a kid and I was like, I just want to look like everyone else. I just want to
Right.
be like, everyone else and look like my friends. But now I'm like, why would I want to do that? Because now look what I get to do for my job. I get to
Right.
literally compete all over the world and represent our country. So I
Mhm.
think it's definitely just, accepting it for yourself, but also being proud of it and being able to use it for good in the world.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so who would you say helped you the most defining you besides yourself? Obviously, whatever is inside of you, your DNA is pushed you. But I'm gonna guess I know the answer to this, but who supported you along the way? Who got you towards this path of being athletic and a go-getter and wanting to just dream big?
My mom.
Yeah.
Definitely my mom and my dad, and I think it started from a young age and them putting me in sports, with able-bodied peers and them never letting me complain about having one hand, not in such a negative way that they weren't understanding or
Right.
they
No.
definitely would hear me out when I did have tough situations involving it, but especially in sports, they were like, "Suck it up, you can play with them." And I was like,
I
"Okay,
tell
you're
you.
right."
It's that
You're so
grit,
right.
right? That grit
Yeah.
is what helps really. And that's what I heard. I've heard that's kind of like the common thread to anybody that
Mhm,
is successful with whatever difference they have. It's
mhm,
it's that toughness inside, that willingness
Mhm.
to go just that little extra more because we have to work a little bit
Mhm.
harder
Mhm.
to reach a goal. But it's
Mhm.
so much sweeter when we reach it,
Yeah,
because
that's a good
you're
way to
like,
put
I did it.
it.
Because,
Yeah.
and I don't know if, well, and you probably didn't have this kind of a comment, but I know with myself in the situation I was in and a couple other people I've met where people said, well, you may never walk. I was told,
Mhm.
don't do the amputation because you will never walk again. And I was
Mhm.
like, excuse me.
You're like, "Have you seen the technology behind
I
prosthetics
know.
nowadays?"
No, I have to say that was a big blow because I was trying to decide to do the amputation and it was
Uh-huh.
actually a surgeon. And
Oh,
that was a tough
gee.
one for me to take. And there was a lump in my throat in that office. And I remember walking out, holding everything together, losing it in my car, and then calling
Mhm.
my to be prosthetist. He actually, the assistant is an amputee. And he goes, don't
Mm.
you listen to that. Don't you listen to that. Look at me. I play basketball. Da, da, da. And I'm like, okay, okay. But, the doubt that I was worried about, because, if I'm going to
Mhm.
choose to do this, that's a
Mhm.
different ball game. Like what happens if I
Mhm.
choose to do it? And he's right,
Mhm.
and so there's that. What would you
For sure.
consider the biggest struggle you faced so far in your life?
Ooh. The biggest struggle. See, it's so funny because, like, especially amongst my para peers, like, people quite literally, like, one of my teammates stepped on an IED in Afghanistan. Another one is, like, adopted from a Ukrainian orphanage at the age of 10
Really?
after being born with a disability, and so people have these crazy stories and have gone through some stuff I cannot even imagine, and for me, I can't even, like, view me missing my hand as my struggle, but I guess to a certain extent,
Yeah.
it was just obviously different than, some life-altering
Right.
traumatic event.
Right.
Mine was just, yeah, growing up and having to accept differences and be comfortable in who I was, I would
Mhm.
say,
Yeah.
and having that visible difference my whole life and just figuring out how to navigate the world with one less limb.
Yeah. I like your thinking though. I agree with that. It's really hard
Mhm.
to almost even complain when you know
Yeah,
how some people
100%.
have lost their limbs. I have
Mhm,
many people come to me and ask if I'm a vet. And I'm like,
mhm,
no, I almost feel like
mhm.
ashamed that I'm not. Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
lost a limb, but actually it was, karate. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, glamorous. I was doing it for myself and I did it to myself. But and then what would you say the a monumental moment in your life was, good or bad, but I'm assuming it's going to be probably good. But what's something that your proudest moment? What was some moment that you knew that you were doing the right thing at the right time and it was all came together?
Actually, it's not positive. It wasn't positive in the moment,
No?
but, about 6 months after I had started training for running while I was working my job, I did my first ever para race, and it was, like, my first introduction to the Paralympic sports, to seeing other people with disabilities and meeting a lot of, the people who would one day be my teammates for track and field, but I was my first time really running the 400, and I was doing pretty well, and then I fell, and it's pretty hard to fall in track because it's just you in your own lane, and my shoe wasn't even untied, and I
So you
just
don't have that going.
fell. No, I can't even blame it on that.
Oh,
So I fell with, like, 10 meters left, and
oh,
I think I might have concussed myself, and I was scraped up, and I got up and finished, but it was in front of, again, all these people who I was trying to earn their respect as a newbie into their world of Paralympic sport, and my mom and I were just talking about this week, and she was like, "I really thought you were gonna quit after that," because I still had my job. I still could pursue that.
oh,
Like, this
yeah.
was kind of my first time racing, and it was before really we had even found skiing and so many things. So I think that was a defining moment that after that fall, as much as I wanted to quit, I was like, I'm going to give this more time. And now
Mm.
I'm doing it full time and really enjoying, obviously, the new life that I have. And I don't think I would have made it to the 2 games
Wow.
and hopefully to more in the future if I hadn't maybe even had that falling experience.
Well, you know what? And
But
I
I'm very
love that.
stupid.
That is like a great pulled together of this whole interview is, you know, being transparent that we're not perfect in what we do. Social media is so deceiving. We see everybody at their best the moment that picture or that video is taken the best. And really, I'm glad you said that. I'm so glad it wasn't a positive, because it became a positive. And I try to drive home all the time that, you know, life is not easy. Like, no matter what you're going through, everybody in the human race, we go through highs and lows. And whether or not we choose to rise up from those lows, that's what makes us who we are. That is what builds character. And that's what toughens us up for the future valleys that are going to come our way, because you're not going to be on a mountaintop for the rest of your life. And so I love that you took a fall that probably made your face turn red. You were probably feeling so humiliated and embarrassed at that moment. And you chose to continue to push forward, because we can't learn if we don't fail or fall, right? That's how we learn. We find out, well, okay, we need to pick our feet up a little bit more, make sure the shoe is tied completely, and keep our head up, right? So I'm glad you shared that, because that was real, you know, and that's cool. I'm glad you shared that. Thank you for sharing that moment. Well, I have to say that this has been a phenomenal interview, and I have to tell you that I'm going to have you on again, because I could go in about 16 other directions that I would love to hit with you. But you're so personable and so wonderful, and gracious for being here. And I appreciate that. I do have a little game I want to play with you, kind of bring it on home with some fun. I'm calling it this or that. So I'm going to give you two things. I have about 10 items or 10 sets. And you just tell me first experience. This kind of gives us a little bit more of a personal take on Dani and who she really is, because she can't think about it too fast, too hard. Okay. It's going to be quick. All right. So you ready?
Okay.
Pizza or tacos?
Tacos.
Football or basketball?
Football.
You a night owl or a morning person?
Ooh, was a night owl, trying to become a morning person, thinking it's morning person now.
Yeah, you're my spirit animal, because that is totally me. I'm way too late at night, and I want to be a morning person. I feel like I get more done when I'm up, but I hate getting up. Yeah. All right, cool. Comedy or reality?
Boo. Comedy.
The mountains or the ocean?
Mountains. No question.
Yeah, I know. After I talk to you, then I'm like, sweet or salty?
Ooh. Again, was sweet, probably moving towards salty nowadays.
Yeah. All right. Are you considered an introvert or an extrovert?
This is like the debate between me and all my friends, because on my test it's an introvert, and I definitely have introverted qualities, but I'm an extroverted introvert. But at the end of the day, I need my time alone, and that's where I rebuild my energy. So no one believes me, but I'm saying introvert.
All right. That's two people back to back that said introvert that I would never expect. Because you're out in the, so it's kind of unique to see that people that are actually like in like a spotlight, you know, Olympics and speaking and stuff, actually can be introverted as well. I like that.
Oh yeah.
You prefer books or movies?
Movies.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
Summer or winter?
Winter.
All right. That's so cool. I wondered if that was going to really trick you up, because you did both Summer and Winter Olympics, and I was really interested to think, all right. So I am grateful for your time. I really would love to do this again. So I hope to have you on in the future. I'll be wanting to watch how you're getting ready for 2024, and wishing you the best of luck. Thank you, Dani, for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure. Good luck. Good luck in everything you're doing in the future.
Thank you.
All righty.